Well, thanks to all of you again that continued to submit your questions for these Q&As. I should have gotten to it Monday, but I didn't. So, hey, it is what it is. I get to it now. That's what matters, I guess. So let's get started. Remember, for Monday, Wednesday, tweet your questions to @OTRSCentral on Twitter. Best ones get answered, or whatever ones I get to. That's the best way I could put it. @Sean_Ickbins. Do you think WWE will ever give Ryback a monster face run again? To me, he could have been a legit threat to Lesnar, yes. In terms of he could have been a legit threat to Lesnar. Imagine, based off of the way they were building up Ryback, if you sat there and would have continued to make him a monster and continue to get him on that monster face run where he's kind of going through almost everybody and everybody and everybody. And then you bring in Lesnar the right way, the way you should have done at the beginning of 2012, starting with Extreme Rules, and then you build and you build and you build. And I don't know if it would have necessarily been a WrestleMania match, but easily could have main evented a SummerSlam, a Survivor Series, a Royal Rumble. Here's Brock Lesnar, the badass, maybe the champion, and then here comes Ryback, the young up-and-comer, the guy that's blowing through everybody. It's irresistible force, a removable object, or whatever the fuck. It would have been great to see, and it would have actually had the feeling of a big-time match. Are they going to give Ryback a monster face run again? No. Are they going to do anything with Ryback again? No. Shame on WWE. @Bauer24Power, which had a better atmosphere, Hogan versus Andre or Hogan versus The Rock? From a business standpoint, Hogan versus Andre drew more money, so that, in a sense, had a better atmosphere. But in terms of a better sheer match atmosphere with the crowd involvement, it has to go to Hogan versus Rock at 18. I mean, don't get me wrong, Hogan Andre had a tremendous atmosphere to it. And you talk about the epitome of that once-in-a-lifetime type of WrestleMania main event. At that time in '87, WrestleMania 3, Hogan and Andre was clearly it. And it has a tremendous match atmosphere. And when I go back and watch it, it still does almost 3 decades later. So there's not much of a difference to me. But I will give a slight edge to Hogan versus Rock, because this was Hogan coming back to a company that he put on the map, but he had been gone 4 years. Here's The Rock, the unquestioned top guy at the time in the company, the movie star. Rock's got Hogan's old spot. Hogan wants his spot. Just so many things about it really worked. I mean, it felt like you were seeing a Clash of the Titans. You were seeing something like, Joe Louis versus Muhammad Ali, or Muhammad Ali versus Mike Tyson, if you will. It felt like that. Incredible stuff. But both matches had a tremendous atmosphere. CandyLick21 asks, why do you think we never got HBK versus Rock? Well, to be fair to everybody involved, Shawn was gone after WrestleMania 14 from an in-ring standpoint, and he wasn't back until SummerSlam 2002. So in that 4.5-year stretch, Rock became one of the bedrocks of the whole Attitude Era. He became a huge international superstar. Then he started to go off and get ready to make movies just as HBK was coming back into the fold, so it just never really quite worked out. Could it have been a tremendous feud? In theory, yes. I wonder how the dynamics of it would have worked. I'm not really sure. Rock obviously would have had to have been face, and HBK would have had to have been heel for it to have any chance to work. But if it worked, my God, it could have worked incredibly well. The chemistry between the two in the ring, I'm not sure how it would go. Let's be honest. But in terms of why we never got it, that's why. Just timing. Timing of HBK being gone during Rock's old run at the top. And then as HBK is coming back into the fold, you have other things to do with Rock and the limited engagements you have him for. Just didn't work out. @WWE961, did your cats ever sleep on your bed? Yes, of course, consistently. Summer does the same thing now. Most people that have animals, their cats or dogs, usually end up sleeping on the bed. They'll try and bullshit you and tell you that's not the case, but it clearly is. Which is worse, WWE 93-97, WCW 99-2001, or TNA when Russo was the booker? Oh boy. Out of the three, I'll have to go WCW 99-2001. I'll go with that. Trey on 13. If John Cena had the same wrestling background as CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, would fans hate him? Definitely not to the same degree. I think it's important to point out that It's not like John Cena didn't pay his dues. He put in his time on the indie scene. He had to work his way up. It wasn't necessarily given to him per se. He earned the opportunity, and he made the most of the opportunities and has clung to his spot for years. So in some ways, he has a similar wrestling background. Maybe not as long on the indie scene or CM Punk, or in particular Daniel Bryan. But I dispute this whole notion that Cena didn't have the same background at all. You know, this is a guy that worked his way up. He spent time on the indie scene. He paid his dues. Fans hate him more so because of the way he is booked, and that is completely understandable. Random WWE. 1043, thoughts on SummerSlam moving out of LA and possibly being in MetLife, and also SmackDown moving to Thursdays on October 2nd. As far as SummerSlam moving out of LA, good. In my opinion, like I've stated before, SummerSlam is supposed to be your big summer show. I think it should be outside. Problem with doing it outside in the summer is that, you know, I don't know if they have the drawing power with these SummerSlam shows to get 70 or 80,000 people into a football stadium to fill it up. And at the same token, you're facing a dicey proposition of trying to use let's say a baseball stadium because you're in the heart of baseball season. So that presents a bit of a challenge in and of itself. As far as if they just do it at like the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, I think that's pretty stupid too. You might as well just kept it in LA. To me, SummerSlam needs to be a summer show. It needs to get outside, and it does need a slightly bigger venue. SmackDown moving to Thursdays. In non-NFL season, I think it makes some sense. But a couple of things. One, you're doing it in the heart of football season. I kind of question the logic of it a little bit. Number two is that if you're not going to do it live, I don't necessarily see where the time slot or day change is going to make a huge difference, frankly. Kentucky James 88 asks, so I have Jay Cutler and Matt Forte in my fantasy football league. My question is, am I totally screwed? I don't know the rest of your team, so I can't sit there and tell you if you're totally screwed. I would sure as hell hope you didn't spend an early round pick on Jay Cutler, just like I would advise anybody playing fantasy football to not spend an early round pick on any quarterback, because again, I emphasize, especially in standard formats or where you only play one quarterback, spending a third, fourth, fifth, or even higher round pick on a quarterback is folly. It is stupid. Don't do it. As far as putting a lot of your faith into Jay Cutler, every year somebody tries to out-sleuth themselves by drafting Jay Cutler and say, this is going to be the year, this is going to be the time, and it's not. And even if you sit there and say, well, the offense is going to produce at a similar level to last year and Jay Cutler will stay healthy all year, so obviously his numbers will increase. Well, even if you want to use that argument, the problem is the Bears' defense is so boo-boo that the Bears could potentially be coming from behind in a lot of games, which could lead to Cutler forcing more throws, hence more interceptions, and that's not necessarily the best thing in the world. I wouldn't say you're totally screwed, but I need to know the rest of your team before I can sit there and fully judge that one way or another. Best Buy Rick 1 asked, do you think that this is awesome chance of WWE have become the NBA equivalent of the NBA MVP chants, as in the way they're overused? No, because at least if you're chanting MVP for a player that clearly isn't the league MVP, maybe you could argue he's the MVP of that game or he's the MVP of the team for the season. The This Is Awesome chants have gotten out of hand. They have gotten ridiculous. Mediocre matches start to get This Is Awesome chants. Solid matches getting This Is Awesome chants. It diminishes the feeling of when a match actually is awesome. And I assure you that unless our standards have dropped that low as professional wrestling fans, we do not nearly see anywhere near the amount of wrestling matches, whether it be ROH, TNA, WWE, whatever company, that merit, justify, and warrant the This Is Awesome chants. The total number of matches that I've actually seen this year that may arguably have deserved This Is Awesome chants, I could probably count on one hand. It's 5 or less. Yeah, I've literally heard dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of chants during matches. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. Fans should be ashamed of themselves. Chris is nice. Better lesbian couple, Tori and Sable or Mickey and Trish? I'll go with Mickey and Trish. I like that duo better. I also thought they had more meat on their bones, and I just happened to find them both a lot more attractive, especially in that time, than I ever did, let's say, Tori or Sable. BW Rosas, do you think Brock Lesnar will lose the belt at Night of Champions, then regain it either at Survivor Series or the Royal Rumble? At this point, I don't think so, but there is always that chance. Plans can change and audibles can be called. Um, they might want to squeeze another match out of Lesnar and Stranger shit hasn't happened. At this moment, I think the WWE is willing to roll with Lesnar as the champ for the near and somewhat long future. So I would doubt that. If they did it, then it's just ultimately more of the same old shit. If they have Brock Lesnar lose the belt at Night of Champions in any way, shape, or form, then why the fuck bother doing it to begin with? Why the fuck bother? And then that really calls into question ending the streak at WrestleMania. If you're going to sit there and follow it up by having Lesnar win the title just to lose it back to Cena the next month. I mean, just think about it this way. How ridiculous would that be? The way he totally dismissed and dominated and dismantled John Cena. Now, a month later, Cena comes back and beats him. That's stupid. At Hub D Nation, now the network exists. Could it be viable for a smaller company to work as a Netflix exclusive TV show? Maybe provide some competition online. You got to have a lot of things going for you. You'd have to have an established brand. You've got to have the infrastructure to be able to pull that off. You have to be able to provide a product that people will be willing to pay for on a monthly basis, which is part of the challenge that WWE is facing. Also understanding that a lot of wrestling fans, if they're not actually at the shows or let's say buying merchandise, they tend to be cheap. A lot of wrestling fans, especially the ones on the internet, they're used to getting stuff for free, pay-per-views, shows every week. So, it's a bit of an uphill battle. Could it work? Perhaps. I'd like to see it happen. I'd like to see somebody try. Imputations ask, how much lotion would fans have to use if CM Punk went against Daniel Bryan in a 60-minute Iron Man match? I believe Jergens and all these other lotion companies would face a crisis. I mean, what the hell are you going to do? I mean, it would get to the point, honestly, where people would just stop using lotion because even that would only help for maybe the first 15 or 20 minutes. After that, they'd still be rubbing themselves raw. They're only delaying the inevitable. So as a result, it might not be that big of a deal. But a lot of lotion would be utilized. There is no question about that. A lot of paper towels to clean up the after effects would also be used. Just saying. And then if you threw like a Dolph Ziggler into the mix, oh God. Oh God. And I Am Marty closes out this Q&A by asking, how long should Lashley hold the TNA title and who should he drop it to? Well, if they're still going to do Bound for Glory in October, the guy he probably should drop it to at this point would be Bobby Roode. That's about the only one I could really think of that it would really make sense for a Bobby Lashley to drop that title to, frankly. So thanks all of you that submitted your questions. Hopefully Wednesday I'll get another Q&A up. Stay tuned all week long for some other content here on OTRS Central.